So my name's David. So I'm currently an independent .NET contractor. So I've been doing .NET for, I've lost count, 10 years or something. I'm currently a Microsoft Windows Azure MVP. So I do lots of talks and stuff. So they brought me in this week to, from what I understand, you guys are building some products, building some MVC websites. And so they brought me in this week to try and talk about alternative clients. Thank you, Java. To talk about alternative clients. So you're building a website, which is cool. You can access that with a browser, desktop, on mobile phones, etc. But what if you want to create native applications on other platforms? So what we're going to do this week is we're going to start off with today, and we're going to create something called a web API. So we're going to create a HTTP REST service so that we can expose our data out to the world. So we're going to do that today. We're going to create the service to expose the data. Then for the rest of the week, we're going to look at ways that we can consume that data. So today is Web API, and then Tuesday and Wednesday is Windows 8, Windows Phone, and then Thursday, Friday is Android and iOS. So today is build it, the other days consume it. So my laptop's popping up with Java, so I never installed Java ever, but I installed the Xamarin tools on yesterday to do Android development, and Android's on Java, so now I get these pop-ups all the time now. Thanks, Java. Now, I'm going to open up Visual Studio. So I have no slides. I'm going to code, and then we're going to talk about it today. Now, there have been Microsoft have taken a few attempts to try to do this. So they first created WCF to try and expose data out to the world. WCF is okay, but it's very heavy. So it's great if you're trying to do big, thick desktop clients and you want to connect it up to a Microsoft WCF service. That's okay, but there's lots of handshaking and protocols and stuff like that. So from that, Microsoft were doing that with WCF and SOAP and WS Star protocols, big enterprise stuff. Whereas what the rest of the internet was doing, they were all doing... I can't find Skype to kill it. It's not here. Skype, close. I don't know. Pro tip, when you're presenting, if you go Windows button and press X, pops up with this thing. If you go to Mobility Center, then you click Presentation, you're presenting, all of the applications like Skype and MSN Messenger and that automatically pick up that setting and they won't annoy you anymore. Pro tip if you're presenting, now it won't pop up. So the rest of the web went across to, and they went to something called REST. So they realized with WCF was, quick show of hands, has anyone done any WCF work? Okay, quick overview. Microsoft created something called WCF. If we go File, New Project, it stands for Windows Communication Foundation. So their idea was you would create a service that could expose data, and you just code the service. You wouldn't worry about how it's exposed out to the world. You just write it. So we're going to allow people to access it, and we're going to send them data. So the beauty behind WCF was you could do that, and then after the fact, choose how you want to expose it. So you could expose it over TCP/IP. You could expose it over HTTP. You could do it in memory pipes, so you could have two processes on the same machine communicating. So that was and so Microsoft were going down that route. But then there was a good paper that was put out which was titled REST, which stood for Representational something state transfer, I can't remember, not important. You just use the acronym. So what they realized was that if you use the full HTTP protocol, everything that WCF did that you tried to set up via configuration, HTTP did it all for you automatically. So if you use HTTP, then straight away you have the URI, so you can automatically get to the resource. You don't need to worry about TCP/IP or anything. Use HTTP, bam, your resource is already exposed. Then they realized that you could use some of the other HTTP niceness. So in HTTP, there's 4 main verbs. There's post, put, delete, and I've forgotten off the top of my head, get. There you go. So they figured if they use those 4 verbs, they can actually do all of the create, read, updates, and deletes just by using those 4 different verbs. And from that, they realized they could use headers to try and just do it all. So they realized they could do it all with HTTP, and they didn't have to do other stuff. So then Microsoft took WCF, and they created a new thing on top of it called WCF, it was either Web API, something like that. And so they tried to take WCF and make it nicer for the web. You can use that as an option. The problem is it does exactly what it does, and you can't modify it at all. So it's okay for existing enterprises that are trying to expose this stuff to newer platforms, but since we're starting from scratch, we're not even going to bother with that either. So Microsoft went and took, and so they went through a few iterations of that. They was Project Astoria for a while, then went to something else, and WCF Web API. So they took 3rd or 4th attempt, they got it right this time. So I'm using Visual Studio 2013. I'm assuming that's what you guys are using here. Awesome. So you would have seen when we create web, a new ASP.NET application. So if we create a new one, now in 2013 you come up with this template. So I'm assuming you guys click this first one and then just hit OK. Yep. Okay. So if you tick this checkbox, they just bring in some references for you automatically. If you haven't automatically checked that checkbox, then we can just add stuff after the fact. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go file a new project and just create a new MVC website as is. So I'll be at the same point you guys are, then show how you can add Web API on after the fact. So then you can follow along afterwards. I'm going to leave authentication as that, hit OK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create a Web API by hand. So I'm just going to create the first 1 or 2 things. Then I'm just going to show you guys how to hit it, just to show what it does. Then I'm going to show you how to just generate it with a wizard. So it's a right-click add, and it does it all for you. But it's important to understand how it works and why it works. So here we go. We've got a blank ASP.NET MVC website, the same stage you guys are at. Let's just hit run to make sure everything works. And yep. Okay, so that's what you guys are at. Because it's MVC, you guys would have your current controllers exposing whatever you guys are doing. So what we do, and also, so if we look at references, we go manage NuGet packages. We look at the currently installed packages. We've got, okay, it doesn't tell us how many we've got. We've got 3 pages worth of packages. So all of these packages are for the core of ASP.NET MVC. So we've got ASP.NET MVC, we've got Entity Framework 6, which you guys are using. So I've heard half of you using Entity Framework code first, the other half using EDMX files. Yep. Cool. And so that's what all of these NuGet packages are. Sorry, have you guys talked about NuGet yet? Yeah. Okay, cool. So by default, it only adds in the MVC package. If we had the checkbox at the beginning that said Web API, they'd bring in the NuGet package for that. So because you guys haven't done that, Microsoft put in the tooling into Visual Studio to just add it all for you automatically after the fact. So controllers, if we right-click and go add a new controller, so we've got the MVC controllers, which you guys are used to. We go down a little bit. We've got Web API controllers. So if we add one of those, what are we going to work with today? People, cats? Give me a random object that we can do. People, cats, pizzas, I don't know. Birds. Birds. Okay, we've got a new bird controller. Okay, so it's done that. If we look back under the NuGet packages now though, we go across, we're going to have a new one for Web API now. So it's automatically added in all of that for us. Something else that it did is under the global.asax, this what I'm looking for? That's not what I'm looking for. App start, route config. Where did it put it? Web API config. So this is what you guys are using at the moment. So when you go to your controller, it's automatically mapping it to this. So it would be, I don't know what you guys are doing at the moment, so it would be whatever /action/ID. So with a Web API, it does the same thing, but it does it under its own configuration. And to try and separate it all out, it puts it under a new thing for API. So it's going to be your website.com/API to let it know now you're going to be able to hit services to bring back data. Then it's going to be exactly what we expect. So it's going to be API/bird/what we want it to do.
That's the convention, isn't it?
That's the convention. So this is just automatic. We could change it. So we, instead of API, we're going to have SSW API if we want. So. Okay, where's our bird controller? So at the moment, our bird controller is, they automatically create this for us. So we've got a get to get back all of the data. We've got get for an individual ID. We've got, this is creating a bird. This is for updating a bird, and that's for deleting a bird. So if we hit run, nothing much is going to happen. So, pro tip number 2, Fiddler. Have you guys used Fiddler yet? Awesome. 2 people? Okay. 3. Yeah. Okay, Fiddler, if you're doing any sort of web development, you need this tool, and it's free, so you can't complain about that price. You load it up. So Fiddler was a project which one guy worked on, and then Telerik purchased it, and so now it's part of the Telerik company, but it's still free, which is awesome. So hit free download, .NET 4. Sure, I agree. Okay, so what Fiddler does is it listens to... No, I don't want to learn more. It listens to web traffic that happens on your computer. So if we go and hit a website, it would go and pop up here. So it's a way to just debug your website, see what stuff is happening. If you're getting just errors back, you can load up Fiddler and see exactly what HTTP requests are happening and what errors are coming back. But it also allows us to create HTTP requests. So what we're going to do is, just to show this default one working, I'm going to hit run, load it up. I'm going to grab that. Now, if we look at it, it was going to be our website.com/bird for our bird controller. And then by default, it's going to do the get on it. So let's open up Fiddler. We'll go to Composer. So if we hit paste just on the front page, sorry, if we hit execute on that, so there you go. It's bringing back this page. So we did a HTTP request and it's come back. So we can see all of the HTML for that page, just to show that it works. If we go back to Composer, we go /API/bird. Hit execute, that's going to blow up. And it should have blown up because if we show the raw, it says the resource cannot be found. Yeah, that's right, /API/bird. I don't need to do get. What am I missing? Web API config. That should all be okay. Let's go back to global ASAX. Register routes. I'm missing something, I don't know what.
Do you have to add the, when you add it in, it shows you the text saying to add the configure routes for...
Oh, I did have to add it. TFM. I was actually expecting it to blow up for another reason. Execute 404. File new project. I'll figure out what the problem is afterwards. You guys don't need to see me debug while we're here. Web API demo 2. MVC with API, Web API. So I'm just missing one step somewhere. We'll figure it out after. So we'll do the same steps. So we've got it. All the stuff should automatically be wired up for us. I'm just going to add that bird controller in again. Controllers, add. So there are a few other ones here. Afterwards, this is the one that we're going to be using, which is going to do the automatic scaffolding for us, but we're just going to start off with this one for the moment. Add. Run. Yay, much better. Let's try this again. /API/bird. So you can see Fiddler's picking up all of the web traffic that's happening in my current stuff. So let's see, we hit execute. Here we go, it's popped up. So we've got a HTTP response back. We've got a 200, which means everything's A-OK. If we open it up, whoops, that one, we can see that it's brought back some data. If we look at the demo, it should be returning back an array of strings, so it's just bringing back two values, value 1, value 2. If you look at it, it's automatically formatted as JSON for us and it's brought back value 1, value 2. If we look at the raw, we can see it brought back a whole bunch of stuff, and there's our JSON. Now, if we go back, so that was that one, we can go and get an individual value. So because it's an array, we could bring back which array element we want, 0 or 1. So we could go back to compose, bird/0, hit execute. Raw, there you go, brings back value, just that single value. So that's just, if we go back to Composer, this is just using get. So we could also use delete, put, post, so we could also use those ones. Let's go back and look at them. So at the moment, if we tried to do a post, nothing would happen. If we tried to do an update, nothing would happen. Delete, nothing would happen. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new entity framework class for birds. So we'll do it for birds. We'll put it in here so we can actually update our database via this web API. And after we've done it manually, you'll see that there are a lot of steps you have to do manually to get everything working correctly as a REST service. And I'll show you how you can right-click and it just does it. So right-click. That's like when you're in school learning maths. They show you all the hard ways of doing it. And they go, everything you just did, here's one button on the calculator that does it for you. Okay, let's add a new class, bird class. Okay, what do birds have? Oh, another tip. I don't know if I've told you this yet. If you type prop and hit tab, cool. Int, we're going to have that as an ID. Another property, strings for what, the species, I guess. I don't know. Can it fly if they're emus or something? I don't know what else birds have. Plumage? Yeah,
Cyclists.
that's enough. So we've got our class. So with code first, there we go. So for those who haven't done Entity Framework code first, we just have to add a little bit of an attribute to it, just so that Entity Framework can pick up which is a key. So we're going to add a new class. We're going to call it our bird database context. So Entity Framework code first is really easy. If you can spell, there we go, we're halfway there. Prop db set of birds. That's it. It will create the database for you. So for those who haven't done Entity Framework code first, so we just subclass a db context, then we just tell it here all of the data sets that we're going to have in here, and that's it. It just does everything else automatically for us. If we don't set up anything else, it's going to use SQL Server Local DB, which is a nice lightweight thing and awesome. And then when you change the connection string, it will just automatically use a SQL Server or SQL Azure or things like that. That's it. So let's go back to our bird controller. So when we do a get, rather than returning this, let's just delete it all. We're going to go var db context equals a new bird db context. Then we're just going to return db context dot birds. It's not an enumerable of string anymore. There we go. So if we hit that, it'll work, but it won't bring back any data because we have no birds. No, it's going to blow up. Okay, fine. Oh, because I didn't build and compile and Composer. It's thinking. Oh, it's the first time I've hit it, so I had to go and create the database and do all of that setup stuff. So not bad. It took, 5 seconds and created the database and tables for me. A lot easier than when I started .NET. It would take me 2 days just to build a schema in SQL Server. So we can go and get all the birds now. Just doing that. Let's do the same thing for an individual bird. So we've got that. Rather than returning the entire data set, we're just going to go db context.birds.find. So find will automatically search based on the ID. I think that's where we tell it to no, we want ID. That should just work. Yeah. So that will go and just search for us. So we say, give us back bird ID 2. You go to the database, try to find ID 2. So let's go and say that, var bird equals, then we're just going to return the bird. Oh, are you guys all using ReSharper? No? Use it. The reason being, so right here, I'm returning back a string, but I want to return back a type bird, so it's complaining. So all I do is I go Alt-Enter, and I can tell it to just change it to a bird. Done. Really easy. So sorry, that's what I did up here as well. So before that, I was returning back an array of. So remember how I told you, like all good applications in presentation mode stop annoying you?
Log out.
I can't. Like it's not here. It doesn't exist.
Put them on the messages and bring up the.
Yeah, just sign out. I can't kill it. Kill it. Oh, now I can.
It's a zombie.
Be gone.
And it's a Microsoft application.
Yeah. So that's how we get back an individual bird. So I won't execute it right now because we don't have any individual birds. It'll just blow up. So now posting. So this is how we would create a bird. We would throw it into it. So rather than passing in a string, we're going to be passing in a bird. And so this bit, the from body, so this is using the MVC underlying stuff. So you would have seen with the MVC controllers when you were doing things, like you're submitting a form or doing an edit, it would have automatically have just put all those properties and populated the object for you in the controller. So this is still just using MVC under the covers, so it just does it for you. So if we just chuck everything in. So we're going to do a very similar thing, db context again. Then we're going to go db context dot birds dot attach. And we're going to put in that bird. Db context dot save changes. Oh, that's it. Okay, so if I've done everything correctly. Okay, we're going to go back to Composer. This time we're going to post a bird. No. That's it. Okay, so now we just pass in some JSON to it to say, hey, here's our attributes of our bird. So we're going to go curly brace, ID, go to ID of 1. We're going to go, I forgot what our other bird properties were. Species. Species, we'll make this a emu. That'll do. It's enough properties for our emu. We'll hit post and it blew up. It blew up because, but no content type. Oh, I put in the wrong thing. It's so content type. That's just, again, using REST saying you can use the whole HTTP scaffolding to do everything for you. So inside of the headers, we're just telling it how we're passing the data to them. So we're passing it in as base64 encoded. Is it JSON format? Is it XML format? So this just helps it automatically pick up what it is. We hit execute again, it dies again. Why does it die this time? I spelled something wrong.
Missing the I in application.
Yeah. Hey, it blows up. That's fine. I'm just not attaching it correctly, apparently. Live demos. Oh, it's just add. I'm thinking of editing, aren't I? So this is why we end up using the scaffolding, the wizard to just do it all automatically for us, so then we don't have this stuff happening. Third time lucky. Post my bird. Let's just skip right to the end. Delete. Actually, I'll bring it back again because one thing I wanted to say, bring it back, bird controller. So to do everything correctly, so when we're looking for an individual bird, So we're going to go hit the database, look for that bird, and return it if it exists. Now, if it doesn't exist, you have to think what's going to happen. So we could just throw an exception and say, exception not found, but that's not very web-friendly. So what you'd want to do is return back 0404. So if you try to find a bird of ID of 5, can't find it, return a 404. So in that case, instead of returning the value, what we want to do is we go request dot I thought it was response, create response. Here's .create response, then you can say HTTP status code, and then all the status codes are here. So we could say not found, not implemented, etc. So if each one of these gets, edits, deletes, you're going to have to go and start putting in all of these other return types. So when you do go and you successfully post one, you're going to have to go return back a HTTP status code of 201, here you go, created. So you're going to have to do that for everything, and it gets very, very tedious thinking which header, which response you want to return back for each one. So that's where I was trying to get to and show you why you don't want to do it by hand. So instead, we go create new controller again. This time we go all of actions using Entity Framework because we now have our birds. So we'll create our bird controller again. It's going to be showing birds, and here's our database context. We hit add, and no, that's fine. There we go. So it does it for us automatically. So that's returning back all the birds. So when we try to find an individual bird, here's where it's doing it for us. So not found, they've already written the method which will go and automatically return the 404s. If we do find it, then return back a 200 response status with the actual data. When you're trying to create a bird, if it doesn't work, then return back the correct HTTP response, etc. So they've gone and done it all for you. So when you're going to be doing this, right-click, get it to do it off of Entity Framework, so it just happens automatically. If we hit run, so let's go and get all of our birds. Execute. What? You can't give me a species. What's wrong with unsupported character? Just not winning today. Species, what's wrong with that? Oh, because in Fiddler under Composer, I've still got a request body. And I'm still doing a post. I want to do a get. Oh, come on. Adam, when we had breakfast this morning, we didn't sacrifice to the demo gods. Compose, execute. Oh, hey! And we successfully got back no data, which is what we wanted. So there's a JSON returning back nothing, because we currently have no birds. Now we can go back to trying to create some birds via HTTP. So we're going to post a bird. We're going to put in a bird ID of 1. We're going to the species, S-P-E-C-I-E-S. P-E-C-I-E-S, yes. Emu, and you're going to work. It doesn't work. Why is it not working? I'm spelling something incorrect in my...
Would ID be automatically added if you don't know what that species would be?
True. That may... No. I've only got species in there. There's nothing else. Ah, it's a string. Yes. Okay, so if we look at this now, so we came back with the headers where... Let's just look at raw, that's easier. There we go. So this is what I was talking about. When you create it, then you have to return back the correct HTTP response. And so if you're creating a RESTful service correctly, once you've created something, it should be returning it back to you so you can get what its ID is, for example. So that's all good. And it also returns back the actual location of it to return back the full URL. So if you were creating a client, you just posted the data to create a bird. Back in the header, it's now returned back to you the full URL to how to get access to the bird that you just created. So if you were doing this by hand, that's all the little things you have to think about. So now, if we go back to Composer, let's put in a second bird. So we've got emu, what's another one? Finch. And a... Condor. That'll do. So let's just go back to get. If we look at them all now, we can return back. There we go. So it's returned back all of the data. And so, as you've seen, all of this so far is just a URL. So we just do a simple request to it. And what we get back is all of the data. As if we hit raw, it's all just a string of JSON. So if you were doing any website development using JavaScript, you could just go hit it, then bring back all the data. You can use it in the web. Also means now if we're creating any sort of mobile application, like a Android application, iPhone app, Windows 8, we can do the exact same thing. This is all just pure web, pure HTTP. We can go and get the data. We can go and delete one. So just make sure all of this works. Bird/1, which would have been our emu. So look at it. Yep. So it's come back saying it's been deleted. If we go and get all of our animals again, we should only have 2 because it's been deleted. So that's how simple it is to use it. Like I can do it. I can go and edit the database now just by manually throwing strings at it. So if you're doing it when you're coding, it's even easier. And as you saw, it's not much more than a right-click, add a controller, point it at your Entity Framework database, and it all just works. The reason why I took the long way around of how to get there was because it was important to understand how I saw just the web. So when you're playing with this, I suggest you go and download Fiddler just so you can debug it. If you were hitting it with your code, you would have been seeing exceptions being returned back. You wouldn't know. So the good thing with this, as you saw, we load it up. We can go and see the entire raw thing and see if it's working, why it's not working. So that's what we're going to be doing today. You guys are going to create one of these, exposing your own data. So then the rest of the week we're going to be consuming it. So if you don't do well today, you're going to have a hard time the rest of the week. Any questions while I'm up here?
What about security?
Security? It's all built on top of ASP.NET. So whatever current security you have in there, it's just going to keep working with it. So if you're exposing all in your website, on your web page, so if they go and log in, because you've already got those cookies and that automatically set up, then it's going to work. So you can put security on this. Yes, absolutely. That's advanced stuff.
I've been running SSW for 20 years. I've also been a lecturer at the University of Technology, Sydney for many years, and I think the gap is getting wider between what they're being taught and what employers need for the guys to hit the ground running and be able to do real work.
Looking for a job as a junior developer can be really tough. There are so many applicants out there, and it's really hard for an employer to separate one from the other. They try really hard, but it's a challenge for them.
One of the problems when you come out of university is everything you learn at university isn't directly transferable into the enterprise.
I think I've seen all the problems that companies are having with new recruits. That's why we created Bootcamp.
The bootcamp is a place where you'll go for 9 weeks, 40 to 60 hours a week and do one thing and one thing only. That is learn to code in Microsoft technologies.
You're going to be learning MVC5, HTML5. These technologies are really important because the uptake in the industry is huge. So this course will just fill that gap between university and starting work.
At the bootcamp, you have a mentor, and that mentor gets you over a challenge you may have straight away, so you can go on to the next challenge. Instead of sitting there for hours searching Google and trying to find answers that sometimes you just can't find.
It's important to have a mentor because it stops you going off track. It stops you getting stuck on things that aren't really important. It happens time and time again where people are going through things that they found on the internet.
What they really need is experience and hands-on coding. And this bootcamp is going to give people the hands-on experience in coding for 9 weeks. Because if you can do as opposed to learn, you have your best chance at getting job ready for your first job in the industry.
It's not an easy course. For 9 weeks, you're thrown into the fire. You live and breathe .NET code. You live and breathe learning best practices and working as part of the team. You'll be working a minimum of 40 hours and mostly 60 hours a week, every week.
Becoming job ready is more than just learning how to write code. You need to know how to work in a team, you need to know how to gather requirements, you need to know how to use the tool set, the Microsoft stack of tools. And during the bootcamp, we're going to be teaching you all these other aspects, the soft skills of development that, by yourself, learning from a book, learning through Google or videos, you just will never learn.
It's not just coding skills, it's also communication skills and the ability to work as part of a small team.
The whole course is run using Scrum, so you'll learn Scrum inside out. At SSW, we've been using Scrum since literally day one, so you'll learn from all our experiences, and you'll just be able to join the company at the end of the course, and you'll be able to fit straight in their team, so you'll be a big asset to any company that you join.
One of the most exciting parts for the students is the gala at the end of the 9 weeks.
The gala is where you showcase what you've done to a room of prospective employers. This is where the rubber meets the road.
At this gala, you're going to be able to present the work that you've created and what you've learned, not to your mum and dad, but to real employers, people looking for junior developers. And at that gala, you're going to be able to present and then talk and discuss with them. And we're going to help you try and get a job at the end, because we believe that the graduates of the bootcamp are the best graduates on the market.
And that is a damn lot better than sending your resume to recruiters who you can only hope will put your best foot forward.
By spending 9 weeks intensely in the bootcamp, learning nothing and doing nothing but .NET programming, and then creating a real app that you can show your prospective employer is impressive. It's impressive because it shows you're passionate, and it shows that you've gone through an incredibly difficult course that most people would never go through. And that's the type of person that we look for at SSW.